Hey there, welcome back to EV Life New Hampshire, the YouTube channel that shares information about what it's like to actually be an EV owner and live with an EV every day. Today, I thought I would share some information about my personal EV since that's the one that I'm using to share my experiences. So I figured I'd give you a walk around tour of the outside and the inside of my electric vehicle. If that sounds interesting and you'd like to learn more, then go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and we'll get into it. My name is Jessica, and you can see Jasper over there hanging out on the hood of the car. And behind me is my 2024 BMW iX full battery electric vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and give you a walk around the outside of the vehicle, then we'll take a quick tour of the inside. I'll talk about the features that I like and things I think BMW could have done better, and the things that the general public likes, and a couple of things that they find to be a little bit on the controversial side. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a walk around the outside of the vehicle, talk about some of the features that are controversial but actually do serve a purpose, and the things that I like. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start our tour at the front of the vehicle. And as you can see, as we come around to the front of the BMW iX does make quite a statement. This is the part that is perhaps for most people the most controversial. It's one of those things that you either love or you hate. As we zoom in a little bit closer, we'll talk about exactly why that is. As you can see on the front here, we have a very large double kidney grille. A lot of people who don't necessarily love this look have referred to the front of this BMW as the pig snout, or in some cases just as the double kidney as beaver teeth. Now when you look at this grille, it's not an actual grille. It doesn't let any air through. This is an electric vehicle, so it doesn't need a full radiator like you'd have in a traditional ICE vehicle. However, within this double kidney grille there are sensors, there's cameras, there's a heating element that actually keeps the whole thing warm so that during the winter those sensors and cameras don't ice over. And an interesting little side note is that this is made out of a healable polyurethane. So if this was to get a minor scratch or a nick while you were driving down the road, you can just park it out in the sun with the grill facing towards the sun, or pour some hot water over it, and it will actually self-heal those minor nicks and scratches. Now as we continue to look at the front of the vehicle, you notice we have very slim headlights that help give the front a very sleek look. And then as we go down from the headlights, you'll see a vent opening to the right, and that actually channels air from the front of the car out and around the tires, which creates a little bit of a curtain with that air to help smooth the airflow around the wheel wells and the tires and make the vehicle more efficient. As we pan back in, you'll see some more of those sensors towards the bottom of the front, and inboard of those outside grills there is another air vent that actually channels air from the front of the vehicle and into the brakes, so that under heavy braking it helps cool the vehicle's brakes as well. And then in the center we have an automated vent that opens and closes based on when the battery needs cooling, and also for better aerodynamics at highway speeds when no additional cooling is needed. Now again, the front of this is kind of a controversial look for a lot of people, and I will admit that I used to be one of those people. When I first saw the BMW iX when it came out, I was not a fan of this look, but it did grow on me over time, and now I appreciate it as one of BMW's more groundbreaking designs, and I'm really impressed with it. And honestly, I've reached a point where I love looking at this car every day. When you look at the overall proportions of the car, as we kind of step back for a minute, you'll see that this larger grille, while unusual, does actually fit with the proportions of the vehicle. Now as we kind of pan up, we see some nice cut lines in the hood that give us a nice detail, keeps it from just being a flat basic hood like you see on a lot of vehicles. But now we're going to kind of move around to the side, and this particular BMW iX has the 21-inch wheels, which are not the best choice for range or efficiency, but they really do fill the wheel wells well and look really nice on this vehicle. We also have matching mirrors, and you'll notice the trim on this one is all blacked out. This has a sport package which includes the blackout trim and also the blue calipers that you can see there in both the front and the rear wheels as we come around. There are a couple of nice cut lines in the side of the vehicle as well that keep it from looking like a flat slab-sided vehicle like you see on a lot of EVs. They're just done for aerodynamics. But in this case, BMW did a beautiful job of combining form and function to give you a vehicle that's not only beautiful to look at, but is also very efficient on the road for a large SUV. And we'll talk more about that efficiency once we hop inside the car. You'll notice instead of the pop-out or flush door handles you see on a lot more EVs these days, this one actually has a door handle where you reach inside, and there's actually a sensor inside that when you pull it will actually electronically release the door. Now you'll also notice that we do have a cutout here that allows us to unlock the vehicle with a physical key if for some reason we were to lose power. So unlike some other EVs with the electric door handles that pop out or the flush door handles, you can get into this vehicle even if your 12-volt battery dies. Now as we move further around the vehicle, we'll see those same handles on the back. We do have privacy windows on this particular BMW iX. And as we move around to the back, again, notice we have, matching the front, very slim, sleek taillights on this vehicle as well. And this one, because it is the sport, has the sport package, also has this rear diffuser with a little bit different design on the back, which again helps with aerodynamics and the efficiency of the vehicle. You'll also notice the camera for the backup lens, or backup camera, is actually in the BMW logo. And to clean this camera, when you choose to clean it, the center section of the BMW logo actually pops open, and the sprayer to wash the camera pops out from inside that logo, which is also pretty cool. We do also have a bit of a spoiler on the trailing edge of the roof to again help with efficiency. And of course, as we come around to the other side, we see our charge port on the right rear, which is pretty typical for a lot of EVs we're seeing, particularly those that come from Europe. It is kind of wrong-sided for Tesla superchargers, which means that if I park at a version 3 charger, I end up taking up 2 spots in order to reach the cable because they're so short on those version 3 superchargers. However, if I'm using any of the CCS type chargers, most of those has very long cords, so it doesn't really matter where that charge port is. And as we take a look inside, you'll see we have our charge port here. If we're just AC charging, we can just open the one flap. If we need a DC charge, we can just hit this bottom flap, and that will open both of the covers to allow you to do your DC fast charging or use a Tesla supercharger with an adapter. And you notice we also have a light here that tells us the status of our charging with corresponding legend over here to the left that tells you what the different colors would mean. Ideally, we want to see green on there so that we know that we're charging. When you're done charging, you just remove the charger, close your flaps. This is a manual door, so you do have to close it. And if you don't close it, the vehicle won't let you drive away until you have actually closed that charge port door. This is one of the things about the BMW that I wish was a little bit different. My previous EV was a 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 6, and that had an electric charge port or automated charge port where I could push a button on the dash and it would automatically open or close that charge port door as I needed it. So if I was out in the rain, jumped out, unplugged my charger, forgot to close the door, I didn't have to get back out. I could just push a button on the dash and then continue on my way. Now as we continue around the vehicle, of course, you'll notice on the mirrors we do have another camera. You can see that right there. And this allows, combined with the other cameras, to give us our 360 view, which is great when you're parking this car. Allows you to see exactly where you are in relation to the cars around you and the parking spot you're trying to get into. Also, I'm not sure if this will show up on camera, but there is a blue tint to the windshield, and the reason that is tinted blue like that is because it actually has UV protectant in it to help reduce the harmful rays that come through into the vehicle that can damage your dash and upholstery, while at the same time helping to keep the vehicle cool. As we pan back around to the front, I'm also going to point out, notice the roof. Now, of course, the way the sun is right now and with the lighting we have, it just looks like a black roof. But the reality is that is all one big piece of glass up there, which is the panoramic roof that we'll see in just a minute from the inside of the vehicle. This does, on the windshield wipers, spray the windshield wash from inside the wipers themselves. And one nice thing about that is that during the winter it's heated, so it helps de-ice the windshield while at the same time keeping your windshield wipers from freezing as well. It's a really nice luxury feature I've had on a couple of vehicles now, and I would love to see something like that on all vehicles so that we don't have to deal with icing in New Hampshire and other states that have winters where that becomes a problem. Now, of course, if you're someplace like Southern California, probably not such a big deal for you. All right, so that's kind of the exterior walk around of the vehicle. Let's go ahead and hop inside and we'll talk about the interior of the vehicle. And again, there's a few things in here that are a little bit different than what some vehicle owners are used to, and they may like them or they may not. And we'll talk about those as we continue our tour. Now, once we're in the driver's seat of the vehicle, as you can see, one of the first things you'll notice as we're looking around is this dash doesn't connect to the front of the cabin the way a traditional dash would, where it goes right up to the windshield. You'll notice we have our defroster vents up there in the front, a gap, and then the dash sitting back from it a little bit. You'll also notice it doesn't connect around the doors. So it kind of gives this floating effect in the vehicle. Now, we do have an electric adjustable steering wheel, so we'll move that down a little bit so we can see a little better. And right now, unfortunately, it is tipped upside down because I forgot to straighten the wheels before I started this video. But it still allows us to see the instrument cluster and infotainment system, which again were intentionally designed to give the vehicle, the cluster, kind of a floating effect on top of that dash. So we have a 14.9-inch infotainment system and a 12.9-inch instrument cluster here, both of which are configurable to show whatever you would like them to show. In this case, I have it set up so that when I'm driving, it will show my map. And when you first start the car, you'll get a little bit of a greeting. It's going to bong to tell us we need to fasten our seatbelt. And then depending on the drive mode that you choose, you'll also see this instrument cluster will change as well. So for example, if we go from personal, where it's at now, to sport, you'll see we get a very different instrument cluster. And now when we look at our infotainment, the home screen looks very different as well. If we change that again, say we go to efficient mode, again, everything changes. So now we have a blue design on our home screen, and our infotainment looks a little bit different, and it still shows things like percentage of battery, range left estimated based on our most recent driving. We have our map in the center, which is what I like, so I don't have to use the navigation on the infotainment. And then again, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but we also have a heads-up display which shows over Jasper's right hand or right paw there, that gives us information like speed limit, how fast we're actually going, a little kind of diamond symbol that shows us when we're using energy and also when we're regenerating. And as we pan back around here, I'm going to come back to this steering wheel, which unfortunately right now is, again, as I mentioned, upside down. But it's a hexagonal design, which again was one of BMW's controversial decisions with this vehicle. A lot of people looked at this and said, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? And again, I was one of those people until I actually drove this car. And then I discovered that if you look at it, and as you're using it, every single section of this wheel feels different in your hands, which means that when you're driving a little more aggressively or in a little more sporty fashion, what you'll find is that you can tell exactly where the wheel is, what angle it's at, and where your hands are on the wheel just by feel once you're familiar with it. So it gives you a very tactile relationship with the vehicle, and I've really learned to love it more so even than just a traditional round steering wheel. Also, while we're looking at the wheel, notice we have these bronze accents. It's called a gold bronze, and you'll see those both on the steering wheel, on the doors, the seat controls, and in the center console, around the heater vents as well, as we kind of pan around. And you'll also notice as we pan around to the passenger side to see those same trim details, that we have a little pocket in the passenger door, and that's not a door handle, that's actually a place for your passenger to put their cell phone so they don't have to hold it in their lap if you're already filling up the other cell phone spots. One of the things I do love about the interior of this is this golden bronze trim. It really breaks up the dark colored interior that I have, where I have the mocha leather for the upholstery and the black leather on the dash, both of which give the vehicle a very luxurious feel, but that gold bronze just really breaks it up and gives you kind of a nice lighter feel in the vehicle, which when combined with the floating dash, the floating instrument cluster, and what they also refer to as the floating center console, it gives the vehicle a very light, airy feel without even taking into consideration the panoramic roof that we'll take a look at in a minute. Now, as we look at this center console, you'll notice it doesn't extend all the way up to the dash like most vehicles do. It gives you a nice, open, airy feel in here. You have another cell phone holder in the front where there is a hole in the bottom that you can run a USB cable through to charge a cell phone up here. We have our start-stop button here, and then our shifter, and various other buttons, including a parking brake and an auto hold, and then a place where we can adjust the volume for the radio. And one of my favorite features in BMW is this iDrive controller. This allows you to do everything that you can do on the touchscreen without actually having to touch the screen, so you don't end up with a lot of fingerprints on there unless you choose to actually use the touchscreen like a touchscreen. So just a great extra feature on the vehicle. Now, one of the things that looks nice initially, but I get a little bit frustrated with over time, is the piano black that you see here. Now, I don't know if you can see it from this particular angle or with this lighting, but as soon as you touch this, no matter how clean your hands are, you get fingerprints all over it. And it's also an incredible dust collector as well. Now, as we pan around to the bottom of the center console, you notice we do have a cooled charging pad. You can see the vents right here that allows you to charge one cell phone. We have two USB-C ports, which again, you can use one of them to feed a cable up through to the cell phone holder on top. And we also have a 12-volt outlet here as well, which can be very handy. And I'll definitely be using that when I start my 21-day national parks road trip to the West Coast. In a few future videos, you'll see that I'll have a small car cooler or car refrigerator plugged in there so that I can keep a few cold beverages and maybe some lunch meats, things like that, cold in the vehicle. You'll notice we also have two cup holders here in the front with a cutout that allows room for the handle if you're using something like an insulated coffee mug. And then we have two more cup holders, one in each door, along with things like our map pockets. And then also notice in the bottom of the door, we have a manual door release. So again, if for some reason you cannot get the door open electrically, you do have a manual release that will lower the window and pop the door open just like a traditional door handle. However, during normal day-to-day use, you'll see we have an electric door handle right there on the trim with our lock and unlock buttons and seat adjusters right behind it. Now, when we look at these seats, again, this is another area that some people kind of questioned. You'll notice we have this black plastic trim around the middle of the seat. Some shorter people have complained that that black trim hits the back of their head when they're driving. So in a future version of the iX, BMW did kind of reconfigure that part. However, when you look at the seats overall, the width of the seat back and even the seat cushion is wider than in most BMWs. And again, the idea behind that design was to make this car super comfortable. Sitting in the seats in this is very much like sitting in a seat or a chair in your living room, as opposed to sitting in, say, a tight bucket seat in a sports car or a bench seat from an older vehicle. is just incredibly comfortable to sit in and very comfortable to drive. Both seats are electrically adjustable in the front. In the rear, however, the seats are not adjustable. They just stay in the position that they're in. However, they are nice and big and wide and comfortable. And as you can see here in the back, if you excuse the little bit of a mess there, you have plenty of legroom, and we'll hop in the back in a minute to show you that as well. Now, the other thing you see down there, the box that says Trigicon, is actually the case that I use for my NACS adapter so that I can charge at the Tesla superchargers. Now, let's go ahead and hop in the back for a minute, and we'll take a look at the view from back there and also the legroom that we have there. And then we'll move on to the way back, as we used to call it when we were kids, and we used to stuff my sister into the back of a Volkswagen Beetle, and we'll take a look at the size of that area and storage as well. So let's go ahead and hop in the back. And you'll notice as we open the door, the vehicle does have an access mode where it will move the seat back away from the steering wheel and also lift the steering wheel up to allow it easier entry and exit from the vehicle. So let's go ahead and hop in the back. All right, notice when we open the door, these are frameless windows, so they do drop down about an inch when you pop the door open to make it easier to open and close the doors. Again, this is one of those features that I'm kind of on the fence about. It looks cool, it gives the vehicle a very luxurious feel, but because I live in an apartment, it means that my car is outside during the winter, and sometimes it ices over and those windows don't open and close properly. So I have to make sure that I always remember to preheat my vehicle to thaw the windows so that I can get the doors open and closed easily. If I don't do that preheating, then sometimes I have to actually sit in the car for a while I wait for the windows to thaw so that they'll drop down so I can close the door and they can pop back up and reseal the car. Now from the back, we can kind of get a better view of the whole front looking up between the seats. Also notice we have an upper console that gives us the ability to turn lights on and off. We have our SOS button for calling BMW roadside assistance if we need it. And this is also where we'll find the button to either make the roof opaque or translucent, depending on how we want to have it. So since we're taking a look at that console, let's go ahead and take a look at that panoramic roof. You'll see it starts right behind the sun visors, so well ahead of the driver and front seat passenger. And as we pan back, you'll see it comes all the way back to right in line basically with the back headrests. So both the front and rear passengers get a full panoramic effect and a nice view from this roof. It's a cloudy day today, so we can't really tell that it's actually translucent at the moment, so we can see through it. If we wanted to make it opaque, we would just push a button on that top console, and that would allow us to make the roof a kind of a white color on the inside, which blocks sunlight and a little bit of the UV that comes through. Now, even though you can make it opaque, it does still let a lot of heat in compared to a solid roof vehicle. So regardless of what type of EV you're buying, if it's the panoramic roof is an option, that's something you may want to consider before you pick the options on your vehicle. If you're someplace where it's hot and sunny most of the year, you may want to go with a solid roof car instead of a panoramic roof like this, because this does get hotter, which means your AC is going to work harder during the summer, which is going to make your vehicle less efficient. So again, just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about purchasing your vehicle, and that would apply even to a gas-powered vehicle. Having to run your AC more is going to make your gas engine less efficient, just like it does the battery with an electric vehicle as well. Now notice, since we're talking about things like air conditioning, we do have our own rear seat controls for the HVAC system. We can make it warmer and cooler. We can automate it. We can turn our fan speed up and down. We can decide if we want our vents blowing on our feet, on our body, or both. And we can also hit max AC back here as well to cool the back off as much as we need to. And you'll notice we have vents in the floor and also in the B pillar that blow back on us and are adjustable as well. Now, as we take a look at the view from the back of the vehicle, notice we do have a map pocket back here. We have USB-C ports in the back of both seats, and we also have a little sliding opening there. And what this allows you to do, you'll notice, is a little pass-through hole there. BMW makes accessories that plug into the back of the seat. So you can buy things like a laptop table, or that can be used as just a regular tray. You can get a coat hanger that clips in the back there to hang your suit coats if you're driving and don't want to wrinkle your coat. And there's a couple other accessories you can get for the back of this as well. A lot of those are on back order right now, so they're apparently very popular. And notice again the amount of leg room that we have in the back of this vehicle. Also notice on the back doors we have that manual release as well. So all 4 doors give you the ability to use the electric lock on a day-to-day basis, but then if for some reason it doesn't work, you still have a manual release that does the exact same thing. We have electric windows in the back, which I'll show you here. This is again one of the things that I wish could have been done better. You'll notice that window only opens about halfway. I much prefer a car where the back window opens all the way. I can understand why it doesn't on this vehicle. Because of the shape of the door, it only allows the window to travel a certain distance, which is unfortunate but understandable. Also, as we pan around, I forgot to mention when we were up front, this vehicle does have the Harman Kardon sound system, and I think it sounds phenomenal. I'm not an audiophile, I don't have the best hearing in the world, so I probably couldn't tell you the difference between the Harman Kardon and the Bowers & Wilkins. If you put me in both vehicles, they'd probably sound the same to me. But I will tell you that I am very happy with the Harman Kardon, and that it sounds great when I'm driving down the road, whether I'm listening to music or a podcast or whatever it may be. And if I'm at a large charging stop where I choose to watch a movie on my infotainment system, it sounds like I'm sitting right in the middle of the movie theater. So I think the Harman Kardon sounds phenomenal. People with more sensitive or better hearing will swear by the Bowers & Wilkins, and that's fine. For me, the Harman Kardon works perfectly fine. Also notice in the back we have those same gold bronze accents like we had in the front, which again break up the mocha leather interior and the black trim that we have in certain areas of the door and around the vehicle. It again gives us a very light, airy feel, even with this super dark interior that we have in this particular car. As we pan back around towards the back, we do have seating for 3 here, and with the flat floor that we have, there is plenty of legroom for 3 adult passengers in here. If you don't have 3 passengers, you can pull down this center console, and it gives you 2 additional cup holders in addition to the 2 that you already have in the door. And as you put your cup in, this will adjust to fit the size cup that you have. When you're done, just close that up, and you can close this. You also have the ability, if we pull this handle here, to make just this center part fold down for a ski pass-through if you're into skiing. When you're done, you can just fold that back up. We also have a foldable headrest here. So if we do have a 3rd row passenger sitting in the middle, they do have a headrest, but if you're not driving with one, you can fold that down and it gives you a little bit better view out the back. Also notice we have our own reading lights in the back here that we can control, turn on and off on our own, either both or individually, so you can have lighting in the back as you need it. And another nice little feature here that gives it a very premium feel is you have an additional set of coat hooks up here over the doors that, when you're not using it, very easily rotates closed and just kind of blends into the background very subtly. Also, another touch that BMW did, which as we kind of lean back to the front, you'll notice the glove box on the right doesn't have a button on it. That doesn't mean that you have to go into the infotainment center, find the right menu, and then unlock the glove box. You'll notice it's blended into the dash just to the left of the glove box. You'll see a button there. Most people don't even know it's there until you point it out to them. So again, just another little touch that adds a premium feel. Now, BMW's approach with this vehicle overall was kind of a design philosophy that's been referred to as shy tech. Now, the idea behind that philosophy is that you'll have very powerful technology in the vehicle that allows you to enjoy it to the maximum effect without any of it being intrusive. So in a way, it's kind of a minimalist design, but not quite to the level of something like a Tesla, where they go super minimalist and everything is done from one screen. Here, it's a nice blend of buttons and screen menus that allow you to get everything done that you need to do without it being super intrusive, and gives you just, again, a nice, comfortable ride in the vehicle. Now, another thing I love about this BMW that, again, people love it or they hate it, is there's multiple ways to do everything. So, for example, I have, as I mentioned earlier, that iDrive controller on the center console that I can use to scroll through menus, select items, turn things on and off. I can also do everything by voice command. So if I wanted to change the temperature in the vehicle, in my case, I've named my vehicle Astrid, so I can just say, "Hey Astrid, set temperature at 70 degrees.
Sure, 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
So now the vehicle is at 70 degrees, and as you can see, the air conditioning just kicked on to cool the vehicle off. So even though I'm not in the front and the vehicle's not turned on, because I said that activation phrase, I'm able to just have Astrid do the work for me. I also have a microphone button on the steering wheel I can push that will allow me to do the same thing without using that activation phrase. Some of the controllers, like the heaters, you can see are always up on the infotainment screen. I can also use that screen as a touch screen and do everything manually. And also, some of the internal features of the vehicle can also be done with hand gestures. So for example, when I want to switch from daily driving mode to efficient mode, I can just basically make a peace sign towards the screen, and that automatically switches me to efficient mode. I have another hand gesture that I use at night that actually turns the infotainment center off completely. So the only thing I have is the instrument cluster running in front of me, and that helps with night vision when you're driving in areas where there is no outside lighting, such as across the mountains through Vermont, where you're just driving and the only light is what you provide. Now, another thing I really liked that BMW did was on this particular vehicle, they went very easy on the ambient lighting. And I know a lot of people love ambient lighting. It makes the inside of the vehicle look really cool, like the cockpit in a plane. But when you do a lot of night driving in areas where there are no street lights and there's no natural lighting, that ambient lighting can not only become distracting, but it can affect your night vision as well and make it harder for you to see what's right around the edges of your headlight beams in those dimmer areas. So I love that there's no ambient lighting in the dash of this car. There is, however, in the window sills of all four doors, and also the footwells, the door handles, and some areas of the center console, but it's all very light. It's dimmable, and you can even shut it all off, which I really appreciate depending on where I'm driving. So now that we've taken a look at the back seat, kind of covered some more areas of the interior, let's go ahead and hop out and we'll take a look at the storage space in the back and talk about what's going on back there. All right, again, as we hop out of the vehicle, you'll notice the window lowered about an inch. When we close the door, you'll see that go back up, and that seals up the cabin again. As we come around to the back, we can either open the back hatch by touching the handle underneath the BMW logo, as you see here, or we can also kick under the vehicle, and that will automatically open the rear cargo area. Now, you can do that kick much more gracefully than I did, and it will still work. Now, you'll notice when the tailgate opens, we have another set of lights here in the back. And this is another set of tail lights because federal law requires that you always have tail lights that work on the back of your vehicle. So on a vehicle like this that has the clamshell tailgate that wraps around the back, BMW had to add a second set of tail lights. So if I'm on the side of the road and have this open, say because I have a flat tire, vehicles approaching can still see my tail lights, hazard lights, brake lights, etc. Now, as we take a look into the back here, I do have a WeatherTech mat in here. They are not a sponsor, but I do love their products. I put this in here when I'm going mountain biking or running errands where I know I'm going to be picking something up that might make a mess, so that it protects the carpeted area that we have underneath. But normally day to day I don't use the WeatherTech, I just put it in when I need it. You'll notice we also have 4 cargo ties around the edges, and we also have an elastic in here so we can put some smaller cargo in and have it all stay in place. Normally we would also have a package tray that sits right here. However, because I plan on car camping over the course of my 3-week vacation coming up soon, and yes, I will be sharing videos from that vacation, both of my driving experiences, charging experiences, and hopefully some really beautiful views from the national parks. I've taken that package tray out so that I can put a mattress pad and a sleeping bag back here and car camp instead of hauling around a tent and a bunch of other camping equipment. Now you'll notice we do have pretty ample storage space back here, but if we need more space, say we were going to be sleeping in the vehicle, which we will be soon, we do have electric releases that fold the seats down. So if I just need this amount of space, which is what fits exactly my air mattress and sleeping bag, I can just fold that side down remotely. If I need to have the full back folded down, I can fold down that side as well. And now if you take a look in here, we actually have a pretty huge storage compartment that goes all the way up to the back of the front seats. Now it doesn't quite fold flat because of the shape of the seats themselves, but that's okay. Still gives you a ton of storage space in here, whether you're using the package tray or not. Now, in addition to all of that storage, we also have underfloor storage as well. So if we lift up our WeatherTech for a minute, you'll see that we can open this, and it's a bit of a mess in here right now, so you can't really see how deep it is, but I've already started putting in everything that I need for my vacation for basically safety gear. So I've got a full EVSE in here where I can charge it either 120 or 240 volts. I have a first aid kit. I have a jack with all of the accessories needed to jack up a BMW. I've got 2 air pumps that charge on USB. I've got an umbrella, a couple of grocery bags in case I need to load something up to be carried and I don't have enough hands to carry it all. So you can fit quite a bit of stuff in here. And when I talk about in a future video what I did to plan for my EV road trip, we'll talk about what we added in here and what were essentials and what were things that we just thought would be a good idea to have. Now, if we didn't have the WeatherTech in here, this tray would fold all the way over flat, so we didn't have to hold it. And you'll notice it has a pull handle to make it easier to reach to flip it back over. Once you're done in there, just drop it down and it latches closed. And in this case, our WeatherTech just closes back on top of it. Now notice we do have in the hatch a second package tray, which when we close the hatch, this will line up with the other package tray if we had it in here. And that does reduce the amount of cargo space you have. However, it also reduces between the two of them a lot of the road noise that you typically get from the back of an SUV. For those of you that drive SUVs that are on the quieter side, you've probably noticed that if you don't have a package tray in there or some type of cargo cover, there is a little bit of almost like a boominess that comes from the back of the vehicle because you don't have that sound deadening material basically that cuts out that reverberation from vibrations in the vehicle, your tires going over cracks in the pavement, things like that. So while they can limit your cargo space when they're in the vehicle, having those package trays and cargo covers in there can help with the comfort of your vehicle when you're actually driving it. Now, we've talked a lot about the features of the car, both the inside and the outside. So let's talk about one of the other things I really love about this vehicle, and that's the range and the efficiency. So when we're talking about the BMW iX, and we'll go ahead and close the back up, and we'll go back around to the side of the vehicle so that we can talk a little bit more about the electronics and range, battery size, things like that. So as you can see, that closes electronically from the button inside. You could also, I could have kicked underneath, but I think you've already seen enough of how ungraceful I can be. You can also close it from the interior of the vehicle. There's a door latch on the driver's door panel that allows you to both open and close that hatch from the back. Now again, I mentioned this is a clamshell door, so you'll notice the seam for the door that comes down the side. So it actually wraps around and is in essence the back of the vehicle, other than the bumper cover on the bottom. Okay, now that we've talked about the inside and the outside of the vehicle, let's talk about things like battery range, efficiency, and the actual battery size. Now you notice when I closed the tailgate there, I pushed a button on the inside. You can also close it by waving your foot underneath, but I think you've already seen enough of how ungraceful I can be for one video. There's also a button in the driver's side door that allows you to close the tailgate as well. So, talking about the 2024 BMW iX battery, it has a roughly 111 kilowatt hour battery with 108 usable and an EPA estimated range of 107 miles, average between city and highway driving. Now, both testers of this vehicle and actual owners, myself included, have experienced much better range than just that 307 estimated EPA. My personal experience is that on the highway at 70 miles an hour, I typically average round trip between 340 and 350 miles of range just on the highway at 70 miles an hour. And on one recent trip back from DC, I actually managed to squeeze out 375 miles at 70 miles an hour one way. Now, it's important that you know the range of your vehicle and how it's affected by things like speed and weather, because all of that can both increase and decrease your range. So for example, if you're driving your car at 80 miles an hour on the highway, you're going to get significantly lower range than you would at 70 or 60, and way less than you get if all you're doing is driving back and forth to work on surface streets. So it's really important that before you plan a long road trip that you get to know your vehicle. So what I would recommend is go out and do a range test of your car. Take it to a charger near the highway at a time when there's not going to be a lot of traffic. Charge up to 100% and make a loop out on the highway. Go out about 45 to 50%, depending on how confident you are in your battery's range and state of charge, and then turn around and come back to that same charger. That way you're getting an accurate reflection of the uphills, the downhills, crosswinds, temperature changes, things like that, so you know exactly what your vehicle will do at your typical driving speed. Now, talking about the battery of this vehicle, the charging speed is another area that a lot of people think was a miss on the BMW iX. It's not uncommon to see new vehicles where they have charging speeds where the peak speed is 400, 450, in some cases even higher for a peak charging speed. The BMW iX, even if you buy a brand new one today, peaks out at 195 kilowatts of charging speed. A lot of people think that's too slow. Now, for me personally, I find that 195 to be just about perfect. I take a lot of stops when I'm on a road trip, probably every hour and a half to 2 hours, which at 70 miles an hour works out to about every 140 to 150 miles max. Even if I was traveling on the western part of the country where you can go 80 or 85 miles an hour, that's still only 160 to 180 miles of driving between stops, which again is well below what this vehicle is capable of in range, even if you're using a low estimate. So because I follow the rule of ABC, or always be charging, which I learned from a great EV channel called Out of Spec, and if you've never watched them and you want to learn about EV reviews and what different EVs are capable of, that's a great channel to watch, so I would recommend checking them out as well. But don't abandon us here at EV Life New Hampshire, because we're going to share a lot of real-world experiences with you. So if you want to learn what it's like to live with an EV, stick here with us. If you want tests and reviews and some road trip adventures and crazy races, Out of Spec is a great place to go as well. So I would recommend subscribing to both. We'll give you very different perspectives, but a lot of good information. And no, they are not a sponsor. It's just a channel I really love and learned a lot from before I got my first EV, and still learn things from to this day. So, understand your vehicle. Know what your range is in good weather. Know what your range is in bad weather. Drops in temperature and increases in temperature can affect range and charging performance both. Perfect example, 2 days ago here in New Hampshire, it was about 80 degrees. 100% charge gave me about 400 miles of range, combined city and highway. Yesterday when I charged, it was about 35 to 40 degrees here in New Hampshire at night, and that range went down to about 310 to 315 as I was charging. So you can see even just that little bit of a drop made a big difference. Now imagine what it would be, what the effect would be on your range if you took that down to, say, 10 degrees or 0 degrees. Those are things you want to know and understand before you head out on any long trip with your EV, because the climate will change. On my upcoming trip, I'm starting out here in New Hampshire in June. When I get up into the Rocky Mountains, I don't know what the weather's going to be there. It could be very cold and winter-like still, so I need to have a good understanding of my cold weather performance. And then also, I'm going to be going through some of the Southwest where it's already getting hot, so I need to understand how the heat can affect my charging performance. Most EVs have some sort of thermal management system, which will balance the temperature of your battery and your vehicle's internals. And if the temperature gets higher, your vehicle has to work harder to keep it cool, keep that battery cool. So the higher the temperature goes, the harder your car has to work, and it will reach a thermal management limit where at that point the car will actually derate the charging to protect itself. So it's not unusual when you're watching an online video, particularly for a vehicle that's been driving a lot or is in a hot climate, to see the host in that video talk about how their car has been derated. You'll also see cases where chargers will derate. This is a common thing to see with Tesla superchargers, is that in hotter climates where they're getting repeated use from vehicles that have a high power draw, that the handles of those dispensers will overheat and the charger itself will derate. So again, these are things you're going to want to understand before you head out on that long road trip. And when I go on my 3-week vacation, I'll be sharing videos of all of those experiences. We'll have videos of what just the general driving is, what we see along the way. I'm going to record and share all of my charging stops. We're going to share videos of all of the national parks we're going to go through as well, and anything else that we experience along the way. So make sure to stay tuned and hit like and subscribe so you can see all of that fun stuff as well. Now, getting back to the vehicle, one of the ways that we achieve the range of this vehicle, in addition to the speed that we drive, is through the design of the vehicle itself. The 2024 BMW iX has a coefficient of drag of 0.24, which for a big SUV is really low. But that doesn't tell the whole story about the design of this vehicle and why it's as efficient as it is. Coefficient of drag is only half of the equation of what determines the efficiency of your vehicle from an aerodynamics point of view. You have to combine that coefficient of drag with how much force it takes for your vehicle to push its way through the air. So think of the difference between, say, a brand new Corvette, which has that very streamlined arrow-like nose, as compared to a school bus, which looks like a box of saltines. Which one of those do you think is going to work harder to push itself through the air versus being in a shape that allows it to move through the air and handle that airflow to reduce the amount of force needed to move the vehicle forward? Now, those are extremes on one end and the other between the Corvette and the school bus, and thankfully the BMW iX falls somewhere closer to the Corvette side of that example. When we were looking at the front of the vehicle, we looked at that big double kidney grille and all of the vents around it, and all of those vents work together to move the air around the vehicle instead of making the vehicle force its way through the air. So we talked about those side vents that push the air out away from the front of the vehicle and around the wheel wells and create kind of an air curtain to help manage airflow at highway speeds. We talked about those inner vents that push air towards the brake calipers to keep your wheels, calipers, and all of the moving parts in there cooler during aggressive driving or high-speed driving, which again helps with the airflow. And we also talked about the center vents that open and close to help cool the battery, but also when they're closed, help with the aerodynamics of the front of the vehicle to help it move more smoothly and efficiently through the air. And combine that with the sloping hood and the curve of the nose of the vehicle, and that's how we reach that efficiency that we get with the BMW iX. It's the coefficient of drag of how the air flows over and around the car, but also the efficiency of the front of the design of the car that allows the air to move around it instead of the car having to push that air. So that combines to give us, on average on the highway, about 3.4 miles per kilowatt at 70 miles per hour. I have seen higher than that, but that 3.4 typically is my average when all I'm doing is driving on the highway. So again, that's something to keep in mind. When you're looking to buy an EV, if you're going to be road tripping it, you want to look at things like that. How efficient is the vehicle? What makes it efficient? Is it the coefficient of drag combined with the efficiency of the design that allows it to move through the air instead of pushing the air? Is it like a Tesla where they have very efficient software and mechanical design that allows them to run more efficiently than a lot of other EVs out there without having to put a lot of extra money into designs and extra mechanisms to move the air or make the motors less powerful to be more efficient? So you want to consider things like that. And also, probably most importantly, how are you actually going to use your vehicle? If it's just a daily commuter, does efficiency and range even really matter to you? If you're plugging in at home every night and fully charging your vehicle and then only driving 40 miles round trip and that's all you use the vehicle for, do range and efficiency really matter? Is charging speed important at that point? Is the range of the vehicle are you ever going to care? If you're road tripping the vehicle, those things obviously become more important. If you're charging at home, then your consideration probably is going to be focused more on, can I charge at home? Do I have the ability to install a home charger that gives me enough of a charge every day so that I can start every day with the full charge that I want or need? Now, in my particular case, I live in an apartment, so I can't have a level 2 charger that would allow me to charge back up to 80% every night in about half hour or so, because I have such a short commute. When I do charge at home, which isn't very often, I have to run an extension cord from my apartment out to the car and charge on a 120 EVSE, which means it takes me about 4 or 5 hours to gain back the 20 or so miles that I commute every day. If I had a longer commute, that wouldn't work for me. And honestly, on a week-to-week basis, I probably never charge at home unless there's something going on that keeps me from going to my local Tesla supercharger. But generally speaking, week to week, once or twice on the weekend, I'll hit the Tesla superchargers, depending on what my weekend plans are. And whatever charge I have left over at the end of the weekend always carries me through the next week. And I honestly don't charge at home unless it's an emergency and I really need to. So even if you can't charge at home, EVs can be feasible. So you want to consider things like, how close is my local high-speed or DC fast charger or Tesla supercharger? Can I charge at home? Those are also considerations. Is an EV something everybody can live with and use every day? No, absolutely not. There's a lot of use cases out there where you can look at how the vehicle's being used, what it's for, where you live, and you can see right off the bat that staying with a gas vehicle is the best choice. And again, the purpose of my YouTube channel is not to convince you that you should be driving an EV instead of a gas vehicle. It's just to help those people who are interested in EVs, maybe want to learn a little more, or with recent rises in gas prices, maybe you are seriously considering purchasing your first EV, or you're not happy with the EV you have now, and you want to learn what to look for so that you love your next EV as much as I love mine. Now, if those types of topics interest you, or if you want to learn more about the road trip that I'm taking in a couple of weeks, and you want to see those videos, or you want to see my upcoming video about planning that road trip and how it's different planning a trip across country versus planning that same trip with a gas vehicle, then don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and stay tuned for hopefully a lot of very enjoyable videos with some beautiful scenery from our national parks across the country. So until the next video comes out and we see you again, remember to live free and charge, and Jasper and I will see you out on the open road and at the chargers. Thank you for viewing, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.